What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is Monday, and so that means it's time for a new comic book day, Top Picks. This week I picked 3 books that are coming out on October the 14th of 2020, and I'm pretty excited to talk about them, but before I ramble too much longer, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons and turn on that notification bell. The first book I want to talk about is called Concrete Jungle. This is a new #1, and it's written by Sheldon Allen with the art done by Carl Mostert. The thing that really caught my attention about this book, if I'm being completely honest here, is the artist. This is Carl Mostert. He did a book called The Man Who Effed Up Time with John Layman, and that book was extremely fun. It was a real blast, and it had this really unique art style that just really helped put the focus where it needed to be in that story and drive it forward the way it needed to. There was plenty of details in the artwork, but you never got lost in the details. You were always able to stay on course and stick to the plot and get through the story in record time. But in no way was the artwork short-sighted or by any means bad. I really liked it for how unique it was. And so, of course, as soon as I saw this name pop up on Concrete Jungle, I thought, I need to check this one out. This book is about a rogue telepath who begins hijacking unsuspecting minds and bodies to commit vicious crimes. Crooked detective Annie Brunson is charged with cracking the case with her new straight-laced telepathic partner, Faith Jones. Set among a backdrop of urban decay, exotic aliens, robots, and generic mutations, in this city there are no good guys, there are no bad guys, there are only survivors. So one thing that stands out to me there is the urban decay with exotic aliens, robots, and genetic mutations. The Man Who Effed Up Time was a book that did all of that. So if I was looking for an artist, this is definitely the artist I would pick. This sounds like it's going to take the fun adventure and time travel elements that were in The Man Who Effed Up Time and kind of convert those over into a more futuristic, almost dystopian society. And so that's exciting to me because everything in The Man Who Effed Up Time was based on something that already exists, some type of time manipulation. A lot of it dealt with Abraham Lincoln and his multiple generations of offspring, and this sounds like it's going to take Carl in a new direction where as an artist he can still do something that's very similar to what he was doing over there, but at the same time it has this unique different twist, whereas The Man Who Effed Up Time was a lot of like oranges and warm colors. I suspect that this one is going to be a little bit more cool colored, and it's going to offer a different, a different imagination than what was there, but it's still kind of somewhat related. I know I'm rambling here, but I'm just trying to stress the point that I really like Carl Mostert's art, and I think his imagination and creativity really lent itself to The Man Who Effed Up Time, and this sounds like another book that is in a similar vein in some ways. And so I'm really excited to see what he does visually with this story. At the same time, I am very interested in what's going on with this story. It sounds like there's some great characters here. Unfortunately, I've never read Sheldon Allen, and therefore I can't give any judgment or have any certain expectations going into this book. But the story itself, based on the synopsis, sounds great. So I'm excited for Concrete Jungle #1, and I can't wait to see what kind of fun unfolds. We Live #1. This is by Roy and Inaki Miranda, with all the art done by Inaki. And this is another #1, so I really don't know a lot about this book, but it definitely has this futuristic dystopian vibe about the artwork and the cover and everything. So I'm excited to see what exactly we get out of this. The synopsis is, the year is 2084 and the world has changed. Racked by calamities and crawling with monsters, the last remaining humans face a dangerous existence. And now, the Earth has been sent a message from the deepest reaches of space. A dark countdown to the extinction of all humanity. But there is a hope. 5,000 children will be rescued by these mysterious message senders. This is the journey of Hatoto, one of the lucky 1,000. But only if his teenage sister Tala can safely deliver him to the nearest beacon before time runs out. I really like the way that this sounds. It sounds like more or less a reflection of what the positions that we're in today in our modern society, with the onset of climate change and the inevitabilities and everything that's going with that. I think this is the kind of message that a lot of times we're looking for. This idea that some of us will be saved, or there's a way out, you know. Even the movie 2012, they crafted this idea of these arcs that the government's been building so that the elite rich can escape from all the calamities that are being created by us. And that's kind of how this feels. There's strange space invaders that are basically sending messages saying, hey, we can save so many of you. And one of the ones that are chosen, it has to be there by a certain point in time, and he's going to be escorted by his sister. Based on the imagery I've seen and the synopsis here, it sounds like the world is not a great place to travel through at this point. So I'm excited to see how this adventure unfolds and what this story ultimately leads to. The book is called We Live. This is a new #1 from Aftershock Comics. If you're not looking at Aftershock, I very much suggest you do. They're making big moves, and they're probably going to be the next boom, if I had to guess. So check out We Live #1. That's by Roy Miranda and Inaki Miranda, and I'm excited to see what that book turns into. As much fun as it would be to make a video where I just said these are all new #1s and I don't know anything about them, good luck. I did find a #2 on the list that I am very much excited for. Stargazer #2 by Anthony Cleveland, art by Antonio Fuso, colors are by Stefano Simeone, and the letters are done by Justin Birch. The first book in this series was absolutely fantastic. I really liked where it was at. I liked the story that it told, and I like how it gave you so many straight answers and at the same time left you with so many great questions and a certain level of insecurity about how dependable the narrator was. So, in the first book, we met Kenny and his sister Shay. Now, Shay has some friends in the beginning of the book. By the time you get to the end, though, they're really not there anymore. This is a story about a brother and a sister, Kenny and Shay, and how this one moment completely changed the course of their lives and quite possibly put them on this path of discovering something more than ourselves, while also leaving in question, how honest and how true that vision is. So in the beginning of the first one, we saw Kenny and all of the girls. They were hanging out in the woods. Kenny's kind of like hanging back because he's always looking at the stars. He's a stargazer. He has a telescope. He's fascinated by what's going on up there. And so it constantly has his attention. And one of the girls finds in her backpack a large sheet of LSD. So they're a little confused about where it came from, and honestly, I don't actually know if she brought it intentionally or if she actually did grab the wrong bag, but ultimately, Stargazer Kenny himself touches the little patch of LSD, and that kind of sets the whole story into motion. From there's a bright light, and then suddenly everybody's up on this water tower, and Kenny keeps reaching for the stars. Of course, Kenny's obsessed with the stars. He keeps reaching for the stars, and he falls over the railing and off of the water tower. And this is kind of where their life starts to fall apart because the girls have to be honest. They tell them, the adults and the police, about the LSD, but they don't really tell all of the truth. And so whenever Kenny falls, he breaks his leg. It looks like he's pretty busted up in his ribs, maybe some stitches. And their mom keeps complaining because she knows there's more to this, because Kenny is no longer Kenny. And this kind of ties back to that bright flash of light whenever he touches the patch of LSD. because there's definitely this assumption that maybe they were abducted by aliens and dropped off on top of the water tower, or something to that effect. So we kind of fast forward from there, forward in time, and we see Shay has a steady job watching the stars as an astronomer, but she's dealing with her brother. Kenny has never outgrown the insanity that has ensued since their childhood. And so whenever he calls for Shay to come see him, he seems to be having a mental health crisis. And she's asking him to look into going into an assisted living facility. And later when she gets home, you find out a little bit more about the missing pieces of her life. And this is a young woman. Shay has been through so much tragedy. It seems like she's lost all of her parents, she lost all of her friends, she lost her wife, and there's no real clear indication if that is because of Kenny or in spite of Kenny, or exactly what all has happened. But at the end of the day, we know that Shay is just a broken young lady that's looking for, I guess, her opportunity at freedom. Like, finally she could grow up and get away from everything if Kenny will just go into this living facility. But unfortunately, things just spiral out from there. Kenny believes he's figured out the secrets to everything. The aliens are coming back, they're coming back, they're coming back. And you see Shay in her bed kind of simultaneously dreaming about what is going on with Kenny. And so in her dreams even, she's saying, stop, don't do it, don't do it. And ultimately the issue ends with a policeman knocking at Shay's door and telling her there's been an incident. And when she asks what happened, he tells her it's better if she sees. And kind of simultaneously we're seeing Kenny get almost like beamed up off of the water tower and in his adult version by some kind of bright light. So you could believe the aliens have come back, or you could believe that Kenny is finally breaking down. They don't actually confirm or deny any of that. And so I think that's what makes this story so interesting, is I'm excited to find out where this goes. There's this interesting bit at the beginning of the book where this scientist lady goes out into the Saharan desert, and they're talking about erasing people's memories, and you see almost like a whale just laying in the sand in the middle of the Saharan desert. And so while that doesn't really connect to anything that happened in the story in this first issue, I'm sure that part will come up later. Maybe they'll touch on it in the second issue. It might not be for a couple of issues. I'm not sure exactly what that part was all about or how it ties in, but I definitely get the impression that that will come back because it seemed relevant to the aspect of the aliens and everything else. Maybe that's what sets things so that it sells me on the idea that the aliens may be real. I'm not sure. I hope other people have read this book. If you checked out Stargazer #1, please drop your theories in the comments below, because I really enjoyed this book and there's so many different directions it could go. There's so many whole truths and half truths in here that it's hard to really say that any of the narrators or anything are reliable. So this story is really interesting to me. The second one comes out this week. This is Anthony Cleveland with Antonio Fuso, Stefano Simeon, and Justin Birch. Check it out and let me know what you think, because I'm really excited for this one. So I kind of hinted at earlier on that these books are kind of touching on something that really interests me. And I'm sure a lot of people that have paid attention to me for any amount of time know that I love the stars, I love space travel, I love things that occur beyond our planet, and so while all of that's really interesting, I've been doing the reviews every week of The Walking Dead World Beyond, and while I've been doing this for Multiversity Comics, so if you have time, jump over to their site, check out what they're doing there. There's a lot of great stuff there. I have a couple of articles that you search for my name, but so far I've done the first 2 episodes of The Walking Dead World Beyond, and it's really had me thinking about where we are as a society and where we're headed. And I think that's kind of the really interesting thing here is we have insurmountable evidence that climate change is a thing, and more importantly, that humans are involved in that. And we know what the signs look like. We know what the inevitabilities are here if we don't do something quickly. And I think a lot of these books kind of play on that. Stargazer is kind of the outlier here, because as excited as I am about the second one here, this is a book that, you know, really appeals to me, and the idea that maybe there's aliens out there and they're going to take Kenny away or whatever else. But whenever I look at Concrete Jungle and We Live #1, we see these very different, almost dystopian societies. You know, the We Live takes place in 2084, and one thing you'll notice is civilization's mostly gone or completely altered in some way. There's a lot of overgrowth and all kinds of things like that. And so this is something that I've thought a lot about lately. I think it's a really interesting subject. I think it's a very interesting topic because it's so relevant. And so that's kind of where I'm at on all of this is, you know, the future is uncertain, but I think there certainly are things that we can look to for signs of what's going to happen next. And I think stories like this explore those possibilities, and that's what keeps me so interested in this genre. It's a reflection of where we are and where we are headed, and I like to dig through that kind of stuff and, you know, look for what I could imagine the future being like. So that's what I have for this week. That's 3 books that I'm really excited for. Like I said, 2 #1, so I don't really know what I'm getting there, but I'm excited to find out. I always like things that are new. And then Stargazer #2 has me really excited because I really enjoyed the first one. I thought it was a really cool story. It was well told. I kind of broke it down in a more like chronological order. The book itself is a little more out of order than that, and so that does make for very interesting storytelling. But at the end of the day, I think all 3 of these books are going to be great. They should all be on your shelves come October the 14th, this coming Wednesday. And, you know, go to your local comic book shop, pick them up, check them out, and let me know what you think. Until next time, keep flipping pages.